Hey, my name's Nikita and I had a baby boy 4 months ago now. And now that I'm recovered and totally refreshed, there were some experiences that I wanted to share with new mums to be because I felt like there wasn't that much information out there. And there's a lot of things that people don't tell you, which I think is really important for first time mums to hear. So, firstly, I had a natural birth, and I was having my contractions, and I went to the hospital, and they have to measure you to see how dilated you are before they actually give you a room. So I was quite early in going to the hospital. I felt the pain, I couldn't take it, and me and my hubby, we made our way straight to the hospital. But if you're not dilated enough, they will send you home. So if I could do that again, I would have waited a little bit longer. You can call the triage or your community midwife. There is a 24/7 telephone number available for pregnant ladies in the UK, and let them guide you, and it's really important that your contractions are coming at the set intervals, and lasting the set time that they recommend before you even make your way to the hospital. Because I thought, oh, let me get there, they're not going to turn me away, I'm screaming, I'm in pain, they're going to have a bed available. No, just no, they will send you home. So just make sure that you're aware of that, at that moment. So during labor, I felt like from all the movies that you watch, and all the things that people used to tell me that had already had babies, it was the actual giving birth part where the baby's exiting your vajayjay, coming out of your body and entering this world. That last bit of labor is the most painful, screaming pain unimaginable, is what everyone basically told me, unless you had an epidural. And I didn't experience that at all. The most painful part for me, giving birth, was actually the contractions, and the later part of the contractions as well, because it comes quite slowly. The pain is quite mild, and then it gradually builds up, until you're actually in active labor. And when I was pushing, it wasn't actually as painful as I thought it was going to be. There were ladies, in my antenatal class, that really had a hard time processing, um, natural births, and it caused them such anxiety that they actually went to their GPs or their midwives and asked them to opt them into elective C-sections. Now, I don't think that's very common these days, but I know that somebody in my group did actually have that in the end, because she was so traumatized by the thought of giving birth vaginally, that she opted into a C-section. And what I would say to that is, for me, the contractions was a lot, a lot more painful than the actual giving birth. If you listen to your midwife and push when they tell you to push, then hopefully everything will be okay. Okay, so after you've given birth, you actually bleed for like a good month, sometimes longer, and for other women it might be shorter. And normal pads, they don't cut the mark. You actually have to get proper professional maternity pads. And I didn't know this at all until maybe a couple of days before. It's not painful, because it's common for people when they're having period pains to when they're having periods, so it's actually get period pains. But that's not the case, I felt, with the bleeding afterwards. It's just that it's good for you to be aware that this is something that's going to happen, so that you're prepared for it when it's your turn. um, the other thing, that people use advice that people used to give me after having a baby was sleep when the baby sleeps. everybody used to say this: when the baby sleeps, you sleep, you know. When they're sleeping, drop everything and sleep. No, that doesn't work like that, unfortunately, because when they are sleeping, you are washing their clothes, or um, you know, sterilizing their bottles, cleaning the house, doing some cooking, eating your bloody self. You know, you fed the baby, but you forget that you also have to feed yourself too. And that advice, I literally feel, is the most pointless advice that I think anyone ever gave me. In reality, it wasn't practical at all. Now, luckily for me, my husband was really supportive, and I was doing both breastfeeding and formula feeding in conjunction with each other. So my husband would chip in and do the formula feeds while I would do the breastfeeding feeds, which meant that we were actually able to divide and conquer, and both of us were able to get a decent amount of sleep to be able to salvage the next day. The other thing that I would say is that after having a baby, a lot of things change physically, and it takes 9 months to make a baby. So don't be hard on yourself if you don't go back to your pre-baby physique ASAP. Um, they do say that it's a lot easier with your first child than it is with your second or your third, but don't be so hard on yourself. I think that the media and the world put a lot of pressure on new mums to, you know, snap back, and that's not always possible. And one of the benefits, and I think that there is light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this topic, and that's that newborn babies sleep a lot. They need up to 16 to 18 hours worth of sleep. And as adults, we only need an average of 7 to 9 hours, so 8 hours. So they're sleeping twice the amount that you need to. So during that time when they are sleeping and you are not, you can do fitness videos. Now, in the description below, I will write down some of the YouTube videos that I used to watch. I just used to put it on my TV and just reduce the volume so that it doesn't disturb the baby. But also, newborn babies can sleep through anything. Hoover, you know, loud sounds on the TV. My husband used to play PlayStation and the baby didn't wake up. And that's not just my baby. I know that that's the case for quite a lot of my friends and family members' babies also. So just squeezing in, even if it's like a 20-minute fitness video, it will make you feel better, and it will help you get back into shape. Now, as I mentioned before, I was half breastfeeding and half formula feeding, but I do believe that when you're breastfeeding, you burn a lot of calories, and that's a great weight loss kind of tactic as well. But in conjunction to that, um, if you're breastfeeding, then you kind of eat more too. So it's a bittersweet, really. But yeah, and then there are some bits that I used which I thought I'd share with you, and I'll put a link to them below in case you're interested in buying them. So firstly, as I mentioned, I was breastfeeding and formula feeding, and when I wanted my husband to do the feed so that I could sleep, I used the Medela pumping machine. Now you get two types. You've got this one which is quite loud, and there are other makes which are more quiet, but they're more expensive. And because I wasn't 100% breastfeeding, and now that it's 4 months, I'm solely formula. You know, I'm not doing it for a year, whereas some people do. So they may want to spend more money on a piece of equipment or apparatus which is less noisy, but I didn't need to do that. The sound does drive you crazy after a little while, but it's fine. It does the job, and it means that I can sleep, and for that I'm very grateful. Now, the other thing is with breastfeeding, if you are in the UK and you give birth in a UK hospital, the chances are that they will not let you home unless they can see you breastfeeding. Now that's what happened to us anyway. I gave birth in a hospital in East London, and it wasn't happening for me, really, to be fair. So the midwives there recommended something called a nipple shield, and I was like, what the hell is this? This isn't gonna work. Oh my god, like he's not latching, blah blah blah. But they were a godsend. So again, they're from Medela, and if I just show you what they look like, it's just like a little plasticky thing like this. I don't know if you can see it. It looks like that. You basically just plump it on to your nipple, and the baby drinks through here. And this was a godsend for me. So these are nipple shields, but Medela also do something called nipple formers. And I actually ended up selling mine on eBay because I didn't really need it in the end. These did the trick for me. But I did buy them, and I heard really good things about them, but I didn't need to use them, as I mentioned, because these worked well for me. So if you have difficulty breastfeeding, maybe you can buy some of these in advance, and then if you don't need them, then just sell them or get rid of them like I did. So that's nipple shields and nipple formers. Now, 4 months in, I'm just solely formula at the moment, and this is what I'm using. So it's just the Cow and Gate first infant milk with the number 1 on it. Now this I felt was cheaper than Aptamil. That's what I was using at the beginning, but then I quickly changed to this, and I stuck to this as well, because they do say that you shouldn't mix your milk either. So that's really important. And then I'll buy the individual bottles that you get that are the ready-made milks, and that's what I would take with me when I'm going to the park, going to see family, or when I'm out and about or whatever for long periods of time. Now colic, that's a big thing for babies. Now luckily my baby did suffer from colic. I self-diagnosed that for him, by the way. It wasn't a doctor, but you can just tell. He did suffer from it, but not as badly as, you know, the kind of other horror stories that I've heard before. And one of the things that worked an absolute treat were there were two things actually. Number one is something called Infocol. So that's what we would give the baby from when he was first born, and we would just give him a drop of Infocol before his feed. And then after he turned, I think it was 3 months, but it may even be sooner, you'll have to check the details on the packaging, but gripe water was amazing. And when it comes to formula, the instructions say you put a little bit of hot water, then you put the powder, and then you add the cold water and you shake it. And that's what I was doing for so long. And then a friend told me, no, why don't you stir it with a spoon, because it creates less bubbles. And I thought, well, you know, the instructions are telling me to shake it. I don't, you know, want to do anything that isn't recommended, or, you know, isn't correct, basically, that could do harm to my baby. But I gave it a go, and oh my god, it worked amazing. It was the best advice I got, and I would definitely recommend that to other parents out there who have babies that are also colic alongside this. Amazing. When they get to 6 months old, you can give them more of this. I think the dosage doubles basically, but my baby's not there yet. Another thing is, when I'm going out to visit family members, or if I'm going out and about and I need to sterilize the bottles for my baby, these things were incredible. I just picked them up off of Amazon. My partner bought these actually. He was really good with researching things and buying whatever you need. And you basically just put the bottles in here with 80 ml of water, put it in the microwave for, I think it's 3 minutes, and then you take it out and voila, it's done. Obviously at home I've got the whole Tommy Tippy sterilizing kit. But when I'm out and about, obviously I don't have that with me. And when, you know, we haven't done a weekend away with our baby yet, but when we do, obviously I won't be able to bring the whole world with me when you've got a bloody newborn. So these, I'm hoping, will do the trick. And then these. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but the pads, you're gonna need these. All right, at the beginning I went to bed, I would wake up and my clothes were soaking wet, the bed sheets were wet, I had to wash them almost like daily. I was like, I did not realize that you leak this much, especially for somebody who wasn't even 100% breastfeeding. I was like, what on earth is happening here? So not only did I need to get new bras because my old ones didn't fit me anymore, I had to go out and buy new ones that would accommodate for my new body and put these in there. They work a treat. I don't actually need to use these anymore since I've stopped breastfeeding. You know, you kind of stop leaking too, but it's a good thing to have ready for you know, when you're preparing for a baby. Now I had my baby, I think just a few days before lockdown. So this was when coronavirus was on the rise, and I had a newborn when lockdown was announced, and that meant that I didn't really have support in that sense because family members couldn't really come over to help me. My husband was a key worker, so after you know, a few weeks he was back at work and I was at home by myself with no visitors allowed. And with COVID, one of the main symptoms was a high temperature. So being a worried newborn, I had like 3 of these temperatures, temperature readers at home. But he was absolutely fine, obviously, and I ended up getting over my fears and going out for walks with him quite regularly, which I would also say is good. I was lucky because lockdown, I gave birth in March, and lockdown happened at the end of March. So by the time I started feeling comfortable to go out, it was April, and the weather in England at that time isn't too hot or too cold, so it's a nice temperature to go out and go for a stroll and to get some fresh air. And it was good for me, and it was also good for my baby. So there you have it. That's some of the tips that I've got for the run up to pregnancy and also post pregnancy too. But there was one other thing actually, and that is postpartum depression. Now, I didn't get this, but I know of people who did. Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was here, but they're not. And if that is you, you are not alone. It's extremely common for mothers to feel this, and especially during lockdown. It's a thing that I think the whole circumstance of coronavirus may have added you know, to the depression that some women experienced after giving birth. And there is support out there, and I will put some information down below of what some of my friends had used that worked really well for them. And just talking about it is absolutely key. And yeah, I just wanted the ladies out there to know, whoever is going through that, that you're not alone and that there is support. So yeah, if you've got any questions or anything like that, if I can be of any help to first time mums who are expecting and expecting soon, then just message me, because I'd be more than happy to help. Thanks, bye.